Hi friends, my name is Akil Ahmed and today we are going to learn about the SQL Server Management Studio. So the agenda of today's video tutorial is how we can use the SQL Server Management Studio. So let's jump to the demo. So there are multiple ways to open the SQL Server Management Studio, and one of the basic method is that you can go to the start menu and from here you can search for the SQL Server. So I have the Microsoft SQL Server Tools 18 here. So I can just go here and then there is an option Microsoft SQL Server Management Studio 18. So you can click on this one and it will open the SQL Server Management Studio for you. And there is one thing that I want to tell you that in the beginning, maybe from SQL Server 2005 and 2008 R2 and even on SQL Server 2012, the SQL Server Management Studio was the part of the installation of the SQL Server itself. But in later versions, SQL Server Management Studio is a separate version and you can just download the Management Studio separately from the Microsoft site. So you don't need to install the whole SQL Server. You can just download the Management Studio as a separate tool as well. So the Management Studio is open now and you can also open it like typing SSMS here. So sometimes we call it as SSMS, SQL Server Management Studio. Okay. So SSMS is the abbreviation for the SQL Server Management Studio. So this is the home screen of like connect to the server. So from the server type, there are multiple options here: database engine, analysis services, reporting services, integration services, and then Azure SSIS integration runtime. So database engine is for connecting to the databases on the on-premises, and analysis services is connecting to the analysis services, cubes, etc. And reporting services is connecting to the reports, and integration services is for connecting to the integration services, and you can see the SSIS packages, those has been deployed to the MSDB database. So these are the things, and so in this case I will just show you like how we can connect to the database engine, and maybe I can show you like how to connect to the integration services as well. So let's first see how we can connect to the database engine. So for this one, because I want to show you like how to connect to the database engine and can see all the databases on our instance, so we can connect to the database engine here. And under server name, we need to provide the server name of our instance. So if you know the server name, then it's good. Otherwise, if you don't know like what is the server name, then you can just click on the drop down and you can browse for more. From here, if you expand the database engine, then you can see how many instances are installed on your machine. So as of now, I have installed 2 instances for SQL Server 2017 and another one is for SQL Server 2019. So I can select any of the instance and then I can connect to that one. So for now, let's select the SQL Server 2019 instance and then I can click on OK. Now on the authentication type, either we can select the Windows authentication or SQL Server authentication, and even we can connect to the Azure databases as well. So if you are connecting to the Azure database, then maybe we can select this option, Azure Active Directory, and there are some other options as well. So first I can show you how to connect with the Windows authentication, and then I will also show you how to connect with the SQL Server authentication. So if you are connecting with the Windows authentication, then this user, HP user, whatever is the user for this particular laptop, that user will be used to connect to the SQL Server. And if you are trying to connect with the SQL Server authentication, then you need to provide the SQL Server username and the password to connect to it. So let me select the Windows authentication first and let's click on connect. So it will connect to the SQL Server instance of the 2019 instance. So if I maximize this one, then we can see like under which user it is connected. So this is the username and this is the instance name, desktop-ekj1p64 / SQL 2019. On the left side, if you see the databases and if you expand the databases, so these are the databases on my SQL Server 2019 instance. And if I show you the security and if you expand this one and if you expand the logins, so these are the logins on my machine. If you want to disconnect to this instance, then you can select this one and you can click on this one. So I can click on this one, so it will be disconnected. And now let me try to connect to it using the SQL authentication. So I can select the SQL Server authentication from here and I can provide the username and then I can provide the password as well. Click connect, so it will be connected as well. Now you can see the user. So this is the user as of now under which it is connected. So if you expand the databases, then you can see all the databases which are situated on this particular instance. And for example, if you expand one of the database, then if you expand the tables, so you can see all the tables which are situated inside a database, and most of the table contains some data. And if you want to know the properties of the table, for example, this is the table. If you want to know how many columns are there, so you can expand this one and you can expand the columns. So you can see all the columns here, and you can see that this is the primary key here. Okay, and if you expand the keys, so you can also see that this is the primary key and this is the foreign key. Okay, so you can see all the properties here, and you can also see by looking at a particular column name, like what is the data type for that particular column. Like this is integer, this is n varchar 15, and this is n varchar 256. So there are a lot of things which you can do using the SQL Server Management Studio. And for example, if you right click on a particular table, and so there are different options here. So if you go to the properties, for example, then you can see a lot of things there as well. Like you can see, if you go to the storage, for example, then you can see like how many records are there. So there are 290 records, and you can see how much space is taken by the data and how much space is taken by the index. So you can see all the things here. So I can just cancel this one. And for example, if you want to see the data from this particular table, so you can just right click on a table and you can select this one, select top 1000 rows. So this will actually create a new SQL query and in a new window, and then the query will be executed automatically. So you can see all the columns are listed here, and it has mentioned like top 1000. So you can see the data as well here. Okay, and for example, if you want to change the query, so you can just remove this top clause from here. Now if you want to execute this query again, so there are two options. Either you can select this particular query if there are more than one query in this particular session, but if there is only one query in the session, then you can just click on execute and the query will be executed again. Okay, but if there are multiple queries written in a session, then you can select a particular query and then you can execute it. Okay, so for example, if I want to execute a query on another database, then maybe I can just click on this minus sign and I can check another database. So let me select the database from here. So now I'm looking at a test database, and if I want to execute a query on a particular database, then maybe I can right click on a database and click new query. So if you see here in the context, you can see the database. So right now this is the selected database for this particular query. Okay, so whatever query I will run, it will run on this particular database. So for example, to select all data and all columns from a table, we can write this query select star from, and I can write the table name. So maybe I can select the data from customer table and I can click on execute. So it will execute this particular query. Now suppose if I have written one more query here. Now instead of the customer, if I have written email, so now if I have not selected any particular query and if I click on execute, so it will execute both the queries because I have not selected a particular query. Now suppose if I want to execute a particular query, then I can select the query from here, and then either I can click on execute or I can press F5 as well. So if I press F5 from the keyboard, then it will execute the query as well. So these are the options here. So if you look at the color of the select and from, so they are in the blue color, while the email it is in the black color. So they are in the blue color because they are the reserved keyword for the SQL language. Now there are a lot of things that you can do, for example, using the SQL query. So now suppose if you want to run a query against another database. So right now, because test database is connected, and suppose if you want to write a query and you want to select the data from the work database. Okay, so how you can select the query? So you just need to provide the database name dot schema name dot table name. So if I want to, for example, select the data from the country table from another database, then I can write select star from database name. So the database name is the work dot dbo dot customer. Okay, so this is how we can run a query against another database. And if you move your mouse to this particular location, then you can also see the server name dot database name. So the server name is the SQL Server 2019 dot test. So anytime you can check it. And suppose if you want to change the connection, so suppose if you want to connect to another server, another instance, so what you can do, you can just go here and there is an option change connection. So you can click on this one. Now suppose if I want to change the connection to the 2017 instance, so I can select the instance name from here and I can click on connect. Now this will be connected to the 2017 instance. Okay, but it is not showing me at this particular location because I changed the connection. But if you want to add a new instance name at this particular location, So for that you need to click on the connect database engine 2017 connect. So now you can connect it to another instance as well. So right now you are connected to the 2017 instance as well as on the SQL Server 2019 instance. And if you hover your mouse here, so here you can see that whatever query you will run, it will run against the master database of the SQL Server 2017 instance. Okay, so let me show you some more things what you can do using the Management Studio. So for example, all these things you can see under the Object Explorer. Okay, suppose if Object Explorer got closed accidentally and if you want to open it, so you can go to the view menu and from here you can click on the Object Explorer and it will be visible again. So if you expand the server from here and then maybe if you expand the tables under the test database, so you can see all the tables here. Okay, now suppose if you want to generate the create table statement for a particular table, then how you can do that? You can right click on a table and then you can go to the script table as create to new query editor window. So if you click on this one, then a create table statement will be generated for this particular table. So suppose if you want to create a table with maybe some another name, then you can just create it. And if you want to create the same table with the same name but with maybe on another database or another server, then you can simply copy this particular query from here and you can execute the same query on another database or on another server. Now there are a lot of things which you can do using this particular GUI. For example, if you go to the script table as, and suppose if you want to drop and recreate this table, so if you click on this one drop and create to, so it will generate a query that first it will check if customer table exists, then it will drop it and then it will recreate it. So this is widely used in the SSIS packages, that when we load the data to a table, then sometimes we put this particular query in the SSIS package that if a table exists, then drop the table and recreate it. So every time it won't be appending the data, it will loading the full data maybe from the CSV file, because a lot of time the customer send full data to us. So if we have the full data, so maybe we can just drop our existing table and then we can load all data to the same table. And there are a lot of options here. For example, if you want to generate a select query, you want to select all the columns, you want to name out all the columns, so you can write this query, so it will select all the columns from a table. If you want to update the data to a table, so you can go here update to new query window editor, so it will generate a basic update query for us. So it can make the process easy for us because it has generated some of the query here. Similarly, if you want to insert the data to a table, so we can generate the insert query as well. And yeah, so here you can just provide the values and the insert query can work. So the GUI can make the life easy for the developers. And for example, if you want to delete some data, so it can generate the delete query as well. You can provide the query statement and it can delete the data. So in this particular table we have the 1000 records, and suppose we want to send the create table statement for the customer table along with the 1000 records, then how we can send all the data? So for that we can actually generate the create table statement along with the insert queries for all the 1000 records. So for that what you can do, you can right click on a database, go to the task, click on generate scripts, click next, and from here we can select this option, select specific database objects. And if you expand the table, so you can select the table like customer table and then you can click next. Now here you need to click on the advanced, and if you scroll down, so there is an option schema only, so you can select schema and data, click OK. Now click on this one, open new query window, click next, click next. So it will generate the create table statement along with the insert query. Now click on the finish. So it has generated the create table statement and then insert query for 1000 records. So you can just copy this particular file and you can send it to over, like if you want to send it to multiple people, and or maybe if you want to generate the same table on another database or on another server. So these are the things. Now there are a lot of things which you can do. For example, if I go to another database like AdventureWorks 2019, and if you expand the database and if you expand the table, so you can see all the tables here. Now suppose I have this table like person.address. Okay, so if I want to know the indexes on this particular table, then what I can do, I can go to the view and then I can select Object Explorer details, and now if I click on the indexes, so I can see all the indexes here, whatever indexes are there. So I can maybe select all the indexes, Control A, and then I can right click script index as, and then maybe I can click this one, drop and create to. So if I click on this one, so it will generate the drop query for all the indexes, and it will also generate the create index query as well. So if I maximize this window, so this is the query to drop the indexes, this is the query to drop the constraint, and then these are the queries to create the indexes back. So I normally generate the create index query from here, because we don't need to write any query for generating the indexes if it is one time task, or maybe if it is multiple time, then we can get the query from here and then we can just drop or recreate the indexes. Okay, because suppose if I need to create the same indexes on same table on another server, then I can generate the index query from here and maybe I can compare those indexes. Now there are a lot of other things as well. If I scroll down, and so I can see all the views here. So if there are any views, so I can see all the views here, and if I right click on a view, and if I go here script view as create to, so I can see the exact query, whatever query is used to create this particular view. So I can see all the queries here, like this view is created based on the joins on so many tables. Okay, so using SSMS, using this tool, we can check everything. Okay, and similarly if I go to the programmability, I expand this one, and if I expand the store procedure, so you can see all the store procedure listed here, whatever store procedures are available for your database. So if you want to see the queries inside the store procedure, then you can right click on store procedure, script store procedure as create to new query editor window. So it will show you the actual code from the store procedure. Okay, so maybe sometimes if you need to make any changes to the store procedure, then you can right click and click on modify, and here you can change the store procedure if required. And similarly, if you want to see the functions in your database, then you can expand the functions, and there are different type of functions like table valued function, scalar valued function. So if you expand the scalar valued function, for example, then you can see all the functions listed here, and if you right click and click on modify, then you can see the code for that particular function as well. Okay, and now if you want to check the properties of a particular database, for example, so you can right click on a database, go to the properties, and from here you can see, for example, the total size of a database, how much space is available, what is the collision of that particular database. And if you go to the files, so you can see the location, like what is the current location where the data is stored for this particular database, what are the file names for the MDF and LDF. Okay, and similarly if you go to the options here, then you can see the collision and recovery model of a particular database, compatibility level. So if you want to change the compatibility level for a particular instance, then you can change from here. So there are a lot of things which can be set here. Okay, and maybe I can click on cancel. Now for example, if you look at the server objects and expand the server objects, so here you can find the link server. So I have a link server which is connected to the SQL Server 2017 instance, which is my another instance. Okay, so using this link server, I can run a query from the SQL Server 2019 instance to the 17 instance. Then I have some other tools as well, like integration services catalog. So we have SSIS DB catalog on which we can deploy our SSIS packages to. Yeah, so this is one of the method to deploy the SSIS packages. And then we have the SQL Server agent. So using the SQL Server agent, we can schedule a SQL query, or we can schedule the SSIS packages as well. So we can create a schedule, and according to the schedule, the queries or the SSIS package can be executed automatically. So there are a lot of things which you can do using this particular SQL Server Management Studio. And if you go to the tool, so you can open the SQL Server Profiler as well. So you can actually, for example, look at the performance, like and what different queries are running on your machine. So you can run a trace using the SQL Server Profiler. You can also connect to the database engine tuning advisor from here. So what database engine tuning advisor does, that it can actually suggest you the indexes which can make your query faster. So suppose if you have a query which is taking a lot of time, and you are using, for example, a lot of different joins, self join or like left join, and maybe if there is some group by, order by clause, and if you don't have the proper indexes on your tables, then using this particular database engine tuning advisor, it can suggest you to create the required and good indexes which can make the query run faster. I tried it a lot of times, so maybe I can create a separate video on this particular tool, database engine tuning advisor, but you can open it from the SQL Server Management Studio. And suppose if you already have a lot of SQL queries written, so you can open a query here as well. So you can click on open file, and from here you can open a particular query. So I have written some queries here like SQL query tool. Let me open this one and see what I have written there. Okay, I have just select star from email. So let me open some another query from here. Select two extra column and select data. Okay, so whatever I have written some query here. So you can just write a lot of queries, and whatever query you think that you can save, so you can just save them, and like you can click on save and it will be saved. And if you want to save as, you can save a query at two different names as well, like select extra, like this one, select as. So you can just save this particular query with some different name as well. Okay, so this is one of the thing. And also, for example, if I run a select query, so let me close this one. So this is one of the select query. Okay, so let me execute this query. This is returning some data. So as of now, this is returning the results. So 1000 rows are returned, and if you go to the messages, so you can see that 1000 rows are affected. Okay, so the result is written into the grid window. Now suppose if you want to return the result to a text format, then there is an option here, result to text. So if you click on this one and if I re-execute the query, so now the result is written in the textual format. So maybe you can just copy all the data from here and you can paste the data in a text file. So then that text file can be imported easily into the SQL Server by some tools like SSIS, which is one of the ETL tool by Microsoft. So you can use SSIS or some other tools as well to import this particular data into the SQL Server tables. And then you can write your comments as well. For example, if you want to comment out this particular query, then you can click on this one, so it will be commented out. Similarly, if you want to uncomment, then you can just click on this one and it will be uncommented out. And then we have the option as decrease indent, and similarly, so it will just move everything to the left, and if you click on this one, increase indent, then it will just move your queries to the right. So these are some of the things which you can try. And yeah, there are some options like cut and then copy. So there are a lot of things which you can do using the SQL Server Management Studio. So you can comment your questions. If I missed anything, maybe I can answer those one as well. So yeah, I think that's it for the initial knowledge of the SQL Server Management Studio. And yeah, there was one more thing, that you can connect to the integration services as well. So if I select the integration services and if I click connect, so you can see all the stored packages. For example, here, like if in the MSDB database, if you have some SSIS packages, so I can see here SSIS module 15. So if I expand this one, so I can see all the different packages here. So these are the packages which you can see from here. And if you right click on here, so you can just click on run package, so you can execute this SSIS package. So this is how you can connect to the integration services. And you can see that the icon is also different for this one, and this is for database engine, this is for integration services. Similarly, if you have like analysis services, integration services, reporting services, so you can connect to any service from the SQL Server Management Studio. Yeah, so I think that's it for today's video. Thank you guys for watching the video, and if you like the video, then please click the like button. Do subscribe to our channel, press the bell icon and click on all, so that you will be notified every time I upload a new video. Thank you so much.